And thank you also for your incredible leadership at Ontario Genomics and the Can Design Steering Committee. I'm very excited to be joined by my panelists today, and we have some great discussion ahead of us, so I'll jump right into it. Marilou, the first question is for you. So Zone Agtech is relatively new in the ecosystem. Could you tell us a little bit about the motivation behind building Zone Agtech?
Yes, thank you. First of all, I'm real pleased to be here today with you. So thank you for the invitation. So you're right, Zone Agtech is really young. It was launched in February 2020, just before COVID-19, but we worked on that project a lot of months before launching it, as you can imagine. So Zone Agtech has been built to give a strategic place for Agtech companies to develop themselves. We have reserved 15 square feet kilometers in the L'Assomption RCM near Montreal for Agtech companies. And every Agtech, as you have to know, cannot implement themselves into the zone. They have to bring value to the ecosystem in place, and their technologies have to pursue at least one of these three objectives. So the first one is help food autonomy or food security. Second one is to reduce environmental footprint of the ag sector. And the third one is to give solution for adaptation to climate change. So in the next 5 years, we are within about 100 to 150 companies into the zone, and we give them all the strategic levers they need to develop and market fastly their technologies. So funding, strategic mentorship, knowledge and talent access, experimental places like lab space, greenhouses and land, office and industrial condos, and market and international access. Sorry. So now about 40 companies are working on their implementation into the zone, and we want to build a place easy to promote in Quebec and into the world to help farmers to adapt themselves and give concrete solutions for food security in the context of climate change and manpower shortage. So the main goal of the Zone Agtech is to accelerate the development of ag technology, as you can imagine, because we know that produce food will be more difficult in the next years, and we have to take action now.
That's awesome. Could you tell us a little bit about the companies that you're currently working with?
Yeah, for sure. So we have a lot of projects actually into the zone. We have about 40 companies. And a community of near 200 companies now. So into the community Agtech, this is the first one in Quebec. We have nearly 100 startups in Agtech and plant bioproduct, 30 research centers, 10 funding partners, and 2,000 first user and market partners. So we have vertical farming, we have biotechnology for sure. We have fish production inside into building, and a lot more like mushroom, new technology, robot, automated system, etc. So this is a wide variety of technology.
That's awesome. Very excited to see what comes out of those initiatives.
Thank you.
Jordan, this next one's for you. As you know, Canada has more biomass per capita than any other country in the world. And that really puts us in a great position to emerge as a leader in the world bioeconomy. From your perspective, do you think that Canada is on track for seizing that position?
Great. Thanks for the question, Samir, and thanks for the invitation to speak about our work here. A really exciting panel, and kudos to you, Marilou, too, for launching a new organization in the middle of a pandemic. So it sounds like you guys have done a great job with that. So yeah, I think, like Bettina alluded to our National Engineering Biology Steering Committee, and we recently published a white paper and really highlighted that biomass opportunity for Canada. For sure, it's something I think that we have, and we have it regionally as well, right? So we have, obviously we're a very large country, but different sources of biomass like forestry, ag, food waste on our oceans, and so on. So I think it's for sure an opportunity for Canada. I think one thing we really need to do, and this is what we advocate for in our paper, is how do you convert that biomass into something useful, right? So there's lots of products, obviously, of biomass on the market, lumber and things like that we've used for a long time, but really converting those products into something valuable, right? And trying to displace a lot of the products that we right now make from petroleum refining. So that's where I think we're excited about biotech. I'm sure everyone at this event is excited about biotech and engineering biology, because we can really now tune microorganisms or tune enzymes to do the types of conversions that we need to go from food waste or forestry biomass into things like textiles for clothing, biodegradable packaging, food ingredients, et cetera. So I think that's really the key for Canada, and I think something that we are lagging. I think other countries, if you look at the U.S., they launched also during COVID the BioMade Consortium. It's a $200 million public-private partnership focused on bioindustrial, which is really how do you use biomass and convert it into industrial products, and that's really focused on engineering biology, synthetic biology. So I think that's where Canada really needs to step up to take advantage of this amazing resource we have.
Mm-hmm. And I know that Ontario Genomics has been one of the most notable leaders in pushing forward this agenda. Could you tell us a little bit about what Ontario Genomics is doing to establish Canada as a leader in the bioeconomy?
Sure. So I think there's kind of two parts, I'd say, I guess, right? I mean, for one, we've been supporting genomics research along with the other regional genomic centers in Genome Canada for 20 years now. So I think that's a really solid base that we've been trying to build. And I think we're trying to continue to follow in that path of supporting academic industry partnerships. And I think that's something we're continuing to try to do and direct into this space. So looking at companies that are in this space and how do you connect them with academics and innovators to try to move something forward. I think too here, it's not a traditional biotech sector, right? So if you look at, say, a biodegradable packaging solution, you want to get consumer-facing companies involved who might know nothing about biotechnology at all, but then you need to work your way backwards along that whole value chain, right? So where are they going to get their films from, for instance, right? And then where are the film producer is going to get their biodegradable resins and so on. So that's really what we've been trying to do, is build that value chain and help to make those connections so that we can, in Canada, kind of smoothly pull through these types of innovations. I think the other thing we're really trying to do is on the advocacy piece. So our white paper really trying to argue for how big this opportunity is, that the science is really here now and that other countries are moving fast. And that's a longer game to play, right? But I think we really want to make sure that different stakeholders in Canada are aware of this opportunity and how we can kind of move forward.
That's awesome. And thank you both Ontario Genomics and you specifically, Jordan, for your awesome leadership in organizing the community and moving it forward. This next one's for you, Clélia. So when we think about the Canada Space Agency, typically we think about rockets and astronauts and so on. But what is it exactly about bioengineering and biomonitoring and so on that has caught the interest of the Canada Space Agency?
Thank you, Samir, and thanks for the invitation. I'm really pleased to be here today. What's important and what's to note for the Canadian Space Agency is that you have elements like food and health that are really key to longer duration missions. And so for now, all the food is sent to the International Space Station from Earth. But as we plan longer trips, whether it's to the moon, to Mars, we require better and new solutions for food production. And so that involves a wide range of innovators in the food space. You can think about the same in terms of health that will support astronauts during these longer missions.
That's awesome. And it's very inspiring to see the CSA take an active role in this space now. I want to follow up. So as a fellow and your personal experience, could you tell us a little bit about the Deep Space Food Challenge from Impact Canada?
Absolutely. So I actually have two hats. So I work with the Privy Council Office, Impact Canada Initiative, and with the Canadian Space Agency. And what we do is that Impact Canada is actually a hub for innovation at the heart of the federal government. And what we do is that we promote outcomes-based practices and approaches with different government departments. So my role currently is to work with the Canadian Space Agency, and we launched on January 12th the Deep Space Food Challenge, which aims to create novel food production technologies that require minimal input and maximize safe, nutritious, and palatable food outputs for long durations, and that also have a potential to benefit people here on Earth. So it is a challenge prize and is composed of different stages that innovators can apply to. And so we're doing this challenge with the Space Agency on food right now, but there is a whole suite of challenges that Impact Canada helps to develop with the with the different government departments across the federal government.
Awesome. So this next question is for all of you. As you know, if we're trying to establish Canada as a world leader in the bioeconomy, that's going to take a dynamic and collaborative ecosystem to do that. So from your perspectives, how do you see the collaborative landscape in our ecosystem, the bioinnovation community in Canada?
So
anybody want to go ahead?
I can begin. So as we often discuss with our pan-Canadian partner, which is a Bioenterprise Corporation, maybe you know them, the Agtech industry, for the Agtech part of the industry of bioeconomy, is currently like 10 different countries, so 10 different industries, sorry. So we have to work more together. And I think this is the role that Bioenterprise take last year. And they want to help this collaboration between provinces. For our part, the priority was to structure the industry in Quebec. In Quebec, this is a particular place, as you know, because we are a lot of French person. So the first part was to structure the industry, and now that it is done, we are increasingly collaborating with Bioenterprise to create a relationship with other Canadian ecosystem, because there is an ecosystem for each province, or an average of. We also create 4 other international corridors last year. So in the United States, Morocco, France, and the Netherlands. So the goal is to promote the Agtech industry of Quebec, but of Canada too.
Awesome. Anyone else?
Maybe I'll jump in quick here. Yeah, so I think we have a ton of the right ingredients in Canada. Like just hearing the work here of different organizations, right? I think there's really great stuff happening. And I think what's exciting is you're starting to see those barriers broken down. So we have the geography opportunity and the kind of challenge, right? We're so big, we're spread out across the country. But now when you're bringing in, biotech isn't just health or just ag, we're, looking at the Space Agency now, I guess, right, is a biotech organization as well. And it's really cool the way you described, Clélia, breaking down those silos between different government departments. And I think that's what we're starting to see now, and really what we're trying to encourage as an organization too, to bring together different groups, I think, and because you don't really know where the collaboration opportunities are going to come from. And I think now with the kind of platform technology, a company that can be developing, I mean, we see it within the health space for COVID vaccines, right? A company that's developing a cancer therapeutic now is delivering COVID vaccines, right? And I think you can see that cross-sector too. I think spaces like cell ag, where, stem cell biologists are looking at how do we culture animal cells to make meat, right? So I think that's, where we have a lot of those different pieces in Canada. And I think it's just, it's going to take that kind of always striving for collaboration and trying to see where are the opportunities across the country and internationally. I think the way you said, Marilou, too, really, really important, because we're still a small place, right? So how do we make sure that our ecosystem is connected to other countries?
Yeah, I'll add to that. And I want to give a shout out as well to District 3 and Montreal New Tech, who have been doing that in the ecosystem here in Quebec for number of years and are doing really great. And this kind of conference that they're holding today is really helping to break some of the silos. And my background is not in bio-innovation or biotech at all, but I can see a similar type of model being replicated in different topics. And I think this idea of whether it's tri-sector and private, public, and social, and within social, of course, there's academics and universities, but building links between these different sectors that usually talk a different language. There's different ways of working, different ways of understanding, giving contracts or starting a project, and understanding and having actors of change in all of these sectors and in the community, like with District 3 and Montreal New Tech, to help do the translation between the actors is what really helps to build the barriers. Then in terms of the public sector, we're trying to do our part, and I think the open innovation approaches like challenge prizes help to really break down some of the barriers that are usually in place. Providing grants or contributions or even a contract in the government is not as straightforward as it can be as in the private sector. And so for example, Impact Canada has specific rules that we can use to enable challenge prizes and giving rewards to startups or even any Canadian that's interested in solving a problem in different ways. And so I think that kind of practices applied to a field that's trying to become more mainstream is super important to really connect the actors and make sure that we're going forward. So this is how we start, and I hope that we'll keep pushing the field forward because Canada has a lot to gain.
Awesome. Do any of you have any ideas or suggestions about how we could improve the collaboration in the ecosystem? No pressure.
Well, more connection and more like not being afraid to build the links between the companies and daring new things as big companies or government entities also learn to work differently, work with startups, work with organizations like District 3 who help break down the barriers. I think it's important to take a leap of faith and sometimes try things that have not been tried before, accept that it might not always result in a positive success, or sometimes it's just an experiment, but having that experimental mindset is important for things to move ahead, I think.
I totally agree with you. I think, research is risky, right? It often doesn't work, but even if your initial experiment or project or whatever you're planning doesn't work, it doesn't mean the connections and the results you got won't lead to somewhere unexpected. So I think that definitely is a role, I think, for the public sector too, is to take on some of that risk for the private sector, right? And look at new areas that are, what we're talking about here is pretty out there for a lot of people, I think, right? So, but looking at that, that's where it's going. And I think when you do look at the amount of capital that's going into these types of efforts in other places in the world, I think we do need to support that kind of more out there type work with different mixes of stakeholders and companies and academics and so on. But it does seem like Canada's moving in that direction. I think we recognize, the old model of physical sciences over here, health sciences over here, and so on doesn't work. We need to break that down. So we are making progress, and like you said, clearly we have to start somewhere, right? So I think now we start and we keep trying to push that.
Awesome. So as you guys know, Canada doesn't yet have a national strategy for bioengineering, and other countries like the US, the UK, Germany, Australia, they've developed these strategies and they're out there for all to see. So Jordan, I guess my question for you is, if not through a national strategy, what ways could we increase the funding opportunities for startups in Canada in this space?
Yeah, I think a national strategy is needed, and or at least a roadmap to guide. And I think not to be prescriptive, but to kind of say, here's the kind of goals where we should be moving towards, and then let people kind of self-assemble to go and meet those, right? I think we can't be, I like strategy, and you can think you can kind of move everything around and get it just right, and it's going to work. It's not how real life works, right? So I think trying to set some goals and look where should Canada play and so on is needed. I think on the startup side of your question, I think we need to look for where can they get support. Efforts like Creative Destruction Lab are great at helping startups, and we're attracting international companies that want to participate in that. And there's a number of biotech, engineering, biology companies in there. And I think for our startup companies too, looking at international sources of money as well. I think especially with COVID now, it doesn't necessarily matter where your company is. It's about what's the opportunity, right? So we tried to pilot some programs at Ontario Genomics, working with international accelerators like in the Bay Area to help companies go down, attend. And there, the checks that they'll write for basically an idea, $250,000 US, because you have a compelling team and a cool idea, that's hard to get in Canada. So I think taking advantage of that is one strategy. As long as we don't lose our companies, we got to make sure that they come back and they stay here. But I'd put that as a caveat on how we access international funding.
Perhaps as a follow-up to that, I'd like to ask, so as you know, there's a lot of different initiatives now emerging in Canada. So just to name a few, there's SynBio Canada, obviously CanDesign, SynBridge, the BioHub, CSBerg, which is the Synthetic Biology Education Research Group, and CGEM as well. So with all these initiatives having overlapping visions and values, but still filling unique gaps in the ecosystem, do you think that, well, I guess what could we do to make sure that everyone's moving in the same direction and to maximize the collaborative potential across these players? That's, if you don't have an answer, anyone else could hop on that as well.
Was that directed at me? I can go quick, I think, on that, and I'm sure others will have something to add on it. I think, we can focus on the organizations that are interested in engineering biology, and it's great that we have those. We need lots of that. I think in the ecosystem, we need lots of organizations, given the breadth of the sectors and geography and so on. I think it will take a lot of players, and there are a lot of players in the different verticals. So I think that's an okay thing. It's how do you coordinate? And I think maybe the challenge model or kind of vision setting with a roadmap is the way to help people kind of be going in the same direction. But I'll stop there.
Awesome. Thank you. So my next question is for you, Clélia. How do you see the challenges created by Impact Canada contributing to advancing the bioinnovation ecosystem here?
Well, it really depends on the kind of government departments that want to work with Impact Canada. So it either depends on budgets or strategies that the government wants to put forward, but Impact Canada actually serves different government departments. So it would have to come from a government department itself with a certain budget to work on a specific problem. But I think there is room for influencing sometimes some of these priorities. So if there is a strong interest and shown and pushed, I'm hoping that there will be challenges that work specifically on the biotech industry in the next couple of years.
Excellent. All right, so I see that we have some questions from the audience. I'm gonna take this one. So I guess this is for all of you. What is your vision for the Canadian bioeconomy over the next 10 years? Anyone want to take a stab at that first?
It will have to have a clear strategy, I think, to propel the industry, because I think the bioeconomy is well started, but a lot of industries, a lot of big players have to take a deeper lead, a deeper action into that sector. This is a relatively young industry too, so we have to lead it a step beyond. And I hope that a lot of more a lot of industry that are more environmental issue will go deeper with bioeconomy and biomass and green packaging, etc. So to have a deeper impact on greenhouse gases.
Anyone else want to share their 10-year vision for the Canadian bioinnovation ecosystem?
Jordan, I'll let you jump in because my background is not specifically in biotech, so I'll let you take that one.
Sure. It's a little bit like the question in an interview, where do you see yourself in 5 years, kind of, right? It's tough, but I think, there was a report published recently by McKinsey on the biorevolution, and I think that kind of gives a picture of what are we going to be like in the world, or what could be in between 2030 and 2040. So that's a $2 to $4 trillion bioeconomy driven by engineering, biology, and biotech, and up to 60% of the world's physical inputs being made from biomass, basically through means of biomanufacturing. So I'd say a vision for Canada is, if that's where the world is going, we need to have our percentage, basically, right? And even that $2 to $4 trillion, and what's Canada's economy relative to the world, right? I think that's the goal, I think, because if that's where people are going, and that is kind of the audacious kind of vision that I think other countries are pushing. We need to be there. And you see this, it's going to be fueled by things like, depending on what happens in the US with Biden's $2 trillion plan, there's going to be significant investment, I think, to really remake the economy and remake traditional industries. And I think for Canada, I think that's where we'd want to see that, our food processing sector is enabled by biotech, and we have products like Cell Ag and increased plant-based type protein products out there. Our traditional ag sector, we have, enabled by biotech, continued growth. I think we want to see, what I'd like is not to see disruption and see our old industries kind of moved aside for biotech, but see these traditional industries basically lifted up and pushed by biotech, so that we take advantage of all of our industry strength and all of our skills and so on that we have in these sectors. So hopefully that will come true. It's pretty rosy, but hopefully that will come true.
Awesome. Thank you all. Okay. One more question from the audience. What can the general public, so students and researchers, do to get involved in the bioeconomy? Any takers?
Maybe from the Impact Canada / CSA side, I would say that the challenge approach is very open to new innovators, and you don't have to have a company, have credentials. As long as you're able to create a Canadian legal entity, anyone can apply. So if you're interested widely in the spectrum of food and new food production innovations, it can really apply to anyone. And so sometimes a competition like this doesn't have, you can always give it a shot, and you don't have to have huge credentials to get started. And there's some good track record of people and companies that were not the usual suspects and gave a shot to their solution and created some really amazing products. So I think that's the first way, if I talk for the Canadian government, but I'll let Marilou and Jordan complete that answer.
Thank you, Clélia. So for our part, as we see in the ecosystem in Quebec, a lot of researchers are involved in the bioeconomy for sure, because this is the future. For the part of the students, we have the MyTax. I think each province has that, a MyTax that can give funding to get students into the research and the development of the technology. What we do at the Zone Agtech is what we did and what we do the last year is to organize programs. So an innovation program where researchers are there to research center, etc., to give the best, the next technologies and the best, the last research on a subject. And students are there, and we build some relationship between companies and students and researchers and scientists to develop the new technology. So there is a good collaboration now. We can do more, but actually, I think there is they are involved in the bioeconomy.
Awesome. I want to just give also a shout out here, similar to MyTax's BioTalent, which also has a booth in the expo, but they've also invested a lot in this space, obviously, in developing students and trainees. This next question is for Jordan. So Jordan, as part of Ontario Genomics, obviously there's also Genome Quebec and Genome Canada and the other genome centers. Can you explain to us how these organizations work together and how this can work to help unify the bioeconomy ecosystem?
Sure, yeah. So just for super quick background, about 20 years ago now, Genome Canada was established in Ottawa, and then regional genome centers across Canada were established. And that model was really meant to be kind of centralized funding and then boots on the ground, looking at what are the regional differences and connecting to regional stakeholders. And I think it still works today. So we really try to use that model, and our work in kind of pushing engineering biology across Canada from the beginning, we started with kind of the grassroots conferences and workshops, and involved every center in those events in terms of identifying, where are the research strengths in those different provinces, who can, be connected into that and invited, and so on. So we've tried to use that model, I think, because we are, like we talked about earlier in the panel, we're a big country and every province has its differences. So I think this is a good model to look at. I think facilitating collaboration and trying to reach different groups, because these types of events are great because you can find out about what different people are doing, but we need other mechanisms too to find how do we connect into kind of initiatives in different provinces and roll that up into the kind of national thinking, I guess. So.
Awesome. Okay, I have a question for Marilou. So which 2 to 3 subsectors in the bioinnovation economy do you see booming in Canada in the next few years?
Good, perfect. Thank you, Samir. So for the Agtech industry part, the booming on the demand side, so not on the industry side, supply side, comes from greenhouses and the market gardening sector, actually, a lot. The greenhouse sector is currently well funded by the Quebec government. Maybe you know that, because the Prime of Quebec wants to increase food autonomy through greenhouse production, especially in winter. But here, many greenhouses have also labor shortage issues, so it's really hard to produce. So there is currently a great demand for technology that allow greenhouse production 12 months a year in the most automated way as possible. So intelligent HVAC system, AI lighting system, intelligent sorting system, and etc. In the market, gardening and berry sectors, demand comes mainly from challenge of the lack of manpower and climate change. So all the technology that make it possible to robotize tasks in the field are closely watched, as well as those that make it possible to carry out precision farming and water access. And on the other side, on the supply side, in Quebec, there is a trend towards the development of vertical farming systems, which allows production in a controlled environment way. And these technology are very interesting, as you know, for diversifying a country's production and reducing imports. And eventually, in this system, we will be able to produce several varieties of fruit and vegetables, including perhaps superfood and plants for biocosmetic, nutraceutical, and even bases for vaccines. Because last year, among others, some of our members have decided to focus on this aspect during the pandemic. And finally, other sectors are also growing, such as mushroom cultivation, insect, green packaging, indoor fish farming, as I told you earlier. So the ag technology sector is currently changing a lot and give big possibilities for the bioeconomy, as you know.
And as a follow-up to that, is there any particular subsector, it could be agri-food related or otherwise, that really interests and excites you, Marilou? Is there one particular application or set of applications that really excites you?
For my part, I am really focused on climate change. So all the technology that give a solution for the adaptation of ag sector to climate change. I think this is the most important. Water access, precision farming, I think will be really, really important. Soil management. This is a lot of technologies. And for another way, because manpower shortage is really an important issue actually in Quebec, robot and automatization, etc. It's really interesting, even if it don't give an impact, a direct impact on climate change.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Okay, so we have just enough time for one last question. So this one's for anyone who wants to take it. How might we accelerate positive regulations for new food and new biotech innovations in Canada? Any takers?
I can take a start and see here. I think I would say I think Canada does a pretty good job at this right now. When you look at decisions that have happened around the world, I think we're pretty science-based. And I think government is open to looking at where are things going. I mean, we have interactions with government on and helping them to understand where are different fields going. And I think we learned a little bit maybe too when you look at, say, cannabis regulation, being kind of ahead of the curve on regulation can actually drive a lot of investment into an area. So I think, when you look at, say, countries like Singapore, where they approved the first cultured meat chicken nugget, I think, right? In Canada, I think, would that make sense, right? Can we be ahead to try to help to drive investment and support into these new areas? And I think government seems to be open to that. So I think staying engaged on where the science is going, and things are going so quick now, I think that's the tough thing, is keeping up with, where are we going 5-10 years from now, because it's the kind of cycles are getting shorter and shorter. But I think government's open to that. So I think that's pretty positive.
Maybe I'll jump in on that and just add the quick space perspective is that there is a lot of innovations that have been, a lot of innovations that have been created for space that then have and find the wide adoption of the technology here on Earth. And in the context of food, we're looking for innovations that range from plant production, aquaculture, bioreactors, bacteria, 3D printing of food, and really anything that can come as a new idea to produce food in a safe manner, and that will have that astronauts will want to eat while in space. And so these foods, once we have concepts and we move ahead with the innovations, the idea is that we want them to be applicable and have benefits for Earth. And so competitions like that, where like the door is open for new innovations, as well as the field of space, which really brings breakthroughs that can then be adopted, can, I think, be good places to innovate and to push the agenda for new things, and then later get into the regulation question.
And Clélia, I'll ask you a question after that. So does the CSA have its own in-house research base, or are you guys strictly collaboration based when it comes to agriculture and health?
So it used to have a research base, and that was in the early 2000s. There were a few research experiments and work done, including one, I think, on Devon Island, which is in the northern regions of Canada. And it stopped around the year 2012. And now it's thanks to the new Canadian space strategy that food is back on the table, no puns intended. It's back on the table, and we've been working on a new vision for food production, and we actually have a food production initiative team within space exploration strategic planning. But we're not doing in-house research, so all the work that we're doing is purely based on collaboration. We just set up a topical team that helps to guide the space agency as to like which direction we should take for the next 10 years and more in order to realize our vision and make sure that Canada is one of the major players in terms of food production for space.